Have a look at this. We're going to look at a little more, but I want to tell you why I'm showing you this. This is the first animation. Now, when you hear, oh, that Disney made the first animation, they made the first animation with sound, right? This animation didn't actually have embedded sound. That was added later, right? So the year this came out, which I honestly don't remember the date. We could look for it, but somewhere around 1900, right? Very long time ago. There was no sound, and people were shocked to see this. The guy who drew it is named Windsor Mckay, and he's most famous for Little Nemo and Slumberland. If you saw the Disney version of Little Nemo and Slumberland, that's not what I'm talking about. That's more of Disney stealing things from Windsor Mckay, which they were in the habit of doing. Little Nemo and Slumberland was a comic strip for the newspapers. Cartooning was born in the United States, so I'm proud of that. Ben Franklin, believe it or not, started it. Not that he was a cartoonist, but he had the first newspaper. And he knew not everyone could read or read well. And he wanted more art. And cartooning was born out of that. I guess the late 1700s. But, you know, down the road, you wound up getting a guy like Windsor Mckay, who could just draw his brains out. I want to give you a moment of just an instant of art history. This is a perfect frame to introduce him to you. Can you guys make this one out on the side? Little Nemo was a comic strip in the papers, and he was a rich kid who he was bored with his life, and at night the bed would sprout legs and walk him through town and take him to dream towns, as well as just different neighborhoods. One thing that shows his genius is look at the position of the moon, for example. Here's the moon in one frame, then it goes up, so it went up on a diagonal line, and then it goes down another diagonal line. Here, it's actually in two frames. So it's interesting here, the character and his bed is in the frame on the left and the frame on the right, but it's the same cityscape. And this was incredibly experimental. Now, these were the first drawings done in frames at all. This guy wasn't looking at anyone. He was first in line. How he could even think like this is still a shock to me. So it's not a surprise that anyone that brilliant, who could design such beautiful pages that actually tell stories in separate frames, would also be the first animator. His brother got a hold of one of the first cameras. And Americans like to say that Thomas Edison invented the camera. Some people say it was Edison's assistant. The French people like to say it's the Lumiere brothers, but they came out at the same time. And McKay's brother, as legend has it, got a hold of a camera, and together they had this idea. What if you do a drawing and I just shoot a little bit on this new movie camera thing, throw it away, and then you draw the same drawing, but a little different. And we shoot it, and then a little different, and we shoot again. And that's how they did this. So it was a, kind of a shocking leap. I heard he made a couple movies after this, which I have not seen. But Disney saw it. And Disney saw dollar bills, and he just knew how to take this technology and turn it into the empire that we all know, right? It would drive most of us crazy, even if you like to draw, for those of you who do like to draw, to do that many drawings. How many drawings do you need for 1 second? Well, back then it would have been about 8 drawings, like a flip book. You ever look at a flip book? And the faster you flip, the smoother the drawing looks. You need at least 8 drawings in a second to fool the human eye. 12 is better. Right now we use 24, and some people use 30. I definitely prefer 24. 24 drawings in 1 second? That's 240 in 10 seconds? Way over 1,000 drawings for 1 minute. So we're very reliant on the software to help us do that, so we don't have to draw every frame. Let's take a look at this for another instant or two. A modern animator would not have the shaky background. And the reason being, the background would be on a low layer and it wouldn't be touched at all. They'd only be drawing the dinosaur and maybe that tree it just ate. But it's shaking all over the place back there because Windsor just kept redrawing it, to get the copies that he needed. So each drawing of the dinosaur had its own separate landscape. We would save a load of time by putting the landscape on a lower layer. And since you all speak Photoshop, you know exactly what I mean. Okay? All right, let's get a taste of this. Too much talk. Could everybody locate Animate and open it? Now, since you successfully used Photoshop and also successfully used Premiere, I'm not going to go through the steps of finding Adobe Animate. You could, however, let me just close this one. You could, however, search your computer for Creative Cloud and open the app that links to all your Adobe software. I want to check in with you though. Did everybody find their copy? All right, so this first step in everything we've done, right, is either opening a new blank file or opening a prior file. Like with Photoshop, we often started with one photo and built on it. In Premiere, we started with a project. Let's see how Animate treats it. I could use any of these features or the new button, but as I say to all my classes, get used to the file menu because every program has it. In Adobe Animate, you begin by doing File Menu, New. And it's going to give you a couple of choices that I'd like to take seriously. When you do File Menu, New, it's offering you some standard sizes. And I want to choose the one that's called standard, right? By the way, it's just a bad name. There is no standard size anymore, not really. So we're choosing something small. It would easily fit on a website. This measures in pixels only. Screen-based media doesn't use inches. That doesn't mean anything to your favorite movie or your favorite animation. So this is in pixels. That's 640 pixels by 480. Could you change this box? I've got a question for you. Does yours say 30 or 24?
30.
30.
30.
People are nodding, but I don't know what that means. Could someone turn on your mic or tell me?
Yes, at 30.
30.
30.
30.
Yeah, I think they're all nodding to 30.
One more time. Say it one more time. My volume was down.
30.
30.
30. So that's
30.
interesting to me. I want to say a little bit about that. If you all have 30, right, that means Adobe's pushing 30 on us, right? That's this version is coming out preset that way. I disagree. One, it's 25% more work. It's more drawings per second. Two, it doesn't look any better at all. And I can prove that by telling you that in live action video with actors, a lot of art house filmmakers set the video camera to 24, where a soap opera is probably shot at 30. And which looks better, an art house movie or a soap opera? There's something about things being too defined. It just doesn't feel natural. So it's too much work, and I don't really think you get any mileage out of it. I'm going to ask you to change this. Yours says 30. Can you change it to 24? You don't have to write .00, just 24 is enough. So this is your width, this is your height, this is your frame rate. That's the number of drawings per second, 24. Let's click create. All right. The first thing I'd like you to do is enlarge the stage so you could see it a little bit better. And I want to show you probably the best way to do that in this version. If you look above the stage, this white thing here, you'll see where it says 100%. And that's the magnifying area. But I like the double arrows next to it because I could just watch it get to the size that I want. What you want is to see the stage as large as it can be with a little bit off stage, left, off stage, right, top and bottom, because actors wait off stage and you don't want to lose track of your drawings, right? And things fall from above the stage and fall beneath. So you want to get it big, but you like to see around it. All right. I want to introduce you to some of the strange behaviors of the tools we need to draw with. Could you look on the left and locate the rectangle tool? Now, what I'd like for you to do with me is also look on the right to see this palette called Properties. So on the left is a toolbar. We're looking for a tool that says Rectangle Tool. You could just tap R on the keyboard to find it if you like. And on the right is a palette called Properties. Did you guys find both? All right.
Yeah.
So I would like for you to click on this box next to the word fill and pick any color you want to use. And then I'd like you to click on the little box next to the word stroke. This is going to be the outline, and pick any color you want to use. I'd like you to draw a few rectangles just to feel it. See if you can draw some wide, skinny ones, some tall, skinny ones, you know, some wide and tall ones. You know, feel your way around with it. I just want you to get a feel for it. This program feels a lot like Adobe Illustrator, another superstar program in the Creative Cloud suite. They're not identical, but they love each other. So people will often draw in Illustrator and bring the artwork here, which is what I used to do. But this program can draw so well now, I don't really bother doing that as much, right? Now, I'd like you to get the black arrow. That's the top of the toolbar. And that's the main selection tool. I'd like you to click in one of your rectangles and notice these little dots. That's a strange way of telling you that it's selected, those little dots. Could you press and drag to see what happens? That's kind of weird. Most programs won't do that, right? The fill and the stroke are typically treated as one object. But in this program, by default anyway, they're treated as separate things, so you can move the fill right out of its own stroke. What I'd like you to try with me is this. Command Z to put it back, or Control Z. Either one, Command Z or Control Z, right? This time double click with the black arrow. And now try to move it. All right, so this is one important distinction that's going to affect us for the next couple of weeks. If you click once, you get part of an object. If you double click, you get the object with its stroke. That's so you could move it, so you could delete it, or you could change its color from the property palette. Could you go ahead and change your colors? So double click any of them, look at your property palette and change your colors. Let's just go through some basic drawing stuff to get started. You know, the stroke color is hard to see because the default stroke is 1 point. That's like 1 pixel wide. You could barely see the thing, right? So if your object's still selected, look on the properties palette and you'll see stroke size. You could drag that as wide as you like. It's easy to draw a basic shape, move it, change it, select it, all of the above. It's a friendly program in that way. I want to show you though what's really weird about the default mode. This program opens up in a drawing mode called merge. And it's assuming that you want to build objects out of parts. And it allows them to merge with each other to create more complex objects, right? Provided you know just a couple basic rules. Let's try them out. Could everyone select all with Command A and press delete? Let's clear our screen. I want you to get back to the rectangle tool, but we're going to try to draw something with it. And I want to make an argument. I think we're going to try to make a car. No, actually, let's make ourselves a building. I got some ideas for you. And what's going to help is, imagine this. You got these characters. You want to show that they're in front of a city. So you want a distant city behind them, right? And often an artist, an illustrator, a cartoonist, even a tattoo artist might make that city into one silhouette, one simple shape, city in the distance, right? Now to do that, here are the rules. Choose a fill for your city, whatever color you'd like to use. Picky guy. But now I need for you to click on the stroke box because there's something important we need to do. So I'm on the properties palette. If you're not seeing these, by the way, you have to go back to the rectangle tool. Maybe some people are still in the arrow. You go to the rectangle tool. The properties palette knows what tool you're using. So you pick your fill, but about the stroke, notice this little feature. This means color of none. And the way to draw without a stroke is not to pick one of these, but to pick this little slash that looks like no smoking. To wind up with that. I want to show you something before you join me. Watch this. That's one object. I'm going to prove it to you. One click of the black arrow, I could change colors. I could do whatever I want to it. And the only reason that worked is because I turned my stroke off. The stroke would have kept the colors separate and they would not have merged. Stroke would act like a wall around each object, so they can't properly merge. But if you want a full-blown merge, that's how you do it. I'd like for you to make yourself a simple city based on what you just saw. There could be other shapes. You know, here's a building beside that one. And I'm going to talk about a few ways that you could edit that drawing. So you could merge shapes, to create more complex structures. I got too many smokestacks there. And it's okay to go off stage if you want. Are your shapes merging? The best way to know if they're merging is to switch to the black arrow and click on something. See if it looks like you only selected a part or you got a whole thing. Now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 sections here, and they can be selected separately if I wanted to make any changes. But these are units, and they're going to travel together. That's pretty cool, I must say. There are ways to tell the program not to merge. This program calls that object mode. Then I want to put that off. It gets complicated when you juggle 2 different ways of drawing. What else can we do? Now, the black arrow in this program does amazing, amazing things, right? And I want you to try a couple of them with me. Could you get the black arrow? Now, you already know that if you click on an object, you've got the whole thing. That's not new, but this is new. If you deselect, you make sure none of the objects are selected, right? You go to a corner point and change it. Try it out. So if something's selected, you see the little dots, take your black arrow and click off. Then you can go to any corner that you think would, benefit from it and change it. If you accidentally select by clicking inside with the black arrow, just click out and start over. That's kind of an amazing thing. This is vector art. And if I have do I have any Adobe Illustrator fans in here? Alex, how did I know? Did you tell me that? I kind of knew that. I guess I just guessed. So, they're not the same, but they're both vector programs. And I'm going to show you what a vector looks like right now, right? Could you have a look at your toolbar? And I want to ask you, I just have to see if this is an emergency, because that's the way life is in 2020. Nope. Okay. So Adobe made these changes recently that I'm sure they're very cool, but I'm still in the stage of being annoyed by them, where the toolbar is so customizable that I'm never really sure my students are looking at. So I want to make a couple of changes with you. And I don't want to stick my neck out because I teach a different class this tomorrow. And I want to lose my tools. You could check on something with me. Black arrow have a little tiny triangle next to it? Because if it does, that means you could press on it to see that there's another tool there called the sub-selection tool. Any tool that's got that tiny triangle is hiding other tools. So what I need to know from you is, do you have this white arrow tool on your toolbar? Does anyone not have it? Because I'll show you how to get it if you don't. So that would be the letter A as a shortcut. So if you want to try to find it fast, tap A on your keyboard and it should find it for you unless you don't have it. Aisha, suddenly you don't look happy. Do you have the white arrow? You're okay?
Yeah.
You're
no,
good? Okay. I
don't have
don't
it.
want people to be shy around me. By now, you know I'm on your side. So, Ying, are you not finding it?
Yeah.
You're not.
No, I don't find it.
You don't find it. Okay, watch this then. I want to try two things with you. And everyone have a look at this. I really got to make a on-the-spot decision about how to handle this. But have a look with me. Could everyone go to the window menu for a minute? And toward the bottom, you see workspaces. I don't know if any of you remember this, but I mentioned it in Adobe Premiere, and I may have even mentioned it in Photoshop. Most programs have this feature, workspaces. There are different arrangements for different kind of user. I would like for everyone to choose essentials. Now, I'm kind of curious. Were you guys already in essentials?
No,
No,
I was in
okay.
basics.
Gotcha. I think essentials is better. I really do. It'll work well when you're new, and it'll work well a year or two from now. So essentials is good. Now I want to ask you, Xu Ying, is it there now? All right, great. All right. Okay, so we've got the white arrow ready to go. Take that white arrow and click the edge of any of your buildings. You could zoom in if you want by doing Command plus. Now I'm gonna make a change on mine. I'd ask you not to join me on this. I just want to find some way to make sure you see what I'm doing. When you click the edge, you see a thin line, which is probably blue, and little things called anchors in the corners. Now, vector programs rely on anchor points, and you're looking at an anchor point right now, right? The white arrow shows you the anchor points. And that's for people who are coming from Adobe Illustrator or people who are really into the pen tool, which is very anchor point driven drawing tool. It's a precision editing tool. Black arrow was able to move the anchor point, but it didn't show it to you. The black arrow did it intuitively. You know, you didn't have to know what an anchor point was, right? The white arrow just shows off what's going on. These shapes, they go to anchor. It's a connect the dots universe, line to line, right? And the white arrow just showed that off, right? I might come back to this subject, but I want to say one more thing for now. Photoshop was a raster program, which means it was based on pixels, right? Anchor points were not a big player there, right? They have tools, but it's not what it's about. It's about pixels. This program doesn't think in pixels. It's a vector program. Raster is Photoshop usually, no anchor points, all pixels. Vector, right? Vector is the other one, raster or vector. This is a vector program. It doesn't rely on pixels. It relies on anchor points. And what's good about that? Here's what's good about it. You could zoom in as much as you want at any time. The image quality is always perfect. Can't do photographs this way. Sorry about that. But you could do graphics and you could do drawings. And animators love it because you might want to zoom in on that hand. And you don't want it to suddenly get pixelated or blurry, right? So anytime a program is based on anchor points, you zoom as much as you want. All right. I'd like you to go back to that magnifier that I pointed out earlier and zoom back a little. So that's in the upper right I'm clicking the low arrow there. You could click the bigger arrow and just back up even more. But I'm looking for the magic size, which isn't available really. You know, it's different for all of us. So when I back up, you could see all the anchors that were created when I merged these shapes to make a building. I worked with 4 anchor objects, rectangles, and I built something more complex. All right, I want to say something quickly though. We're not going to use the white arrow much. I only used it to show you what an anchor point looks like and to let people who are familiar with similar tools know that it's here, right? I want to get back to the black arrow though. So if you press, you can go back to the black arrow, or you could just press the letter V. So what's cooler about the black arrow? Well, the black arrow is intuitive and it does a few tricks I want to share with you. All right, we already know that you can move anchors without even looking at them, right? Here's what else you can do. What if you go in between anchors? A curved cursor shows up because you could do that. So it's interesting. I can move back and forth from moving anchors around and making a curve. That's pretty slick. You could do that anywhere you want. I think, yeah, maybe one more. Pretty cool. White arrow users would go in there and see what just happened with the white arrow and all that. It's just not important to what we're going to do right now. All right, what else does the black arrow do? Well, you already discovered the first thing, that it selects objects, but that was only if you clicked on them. Look at this. Check this out. I am going to click and drag very carefully here because I want to show you something interesting. You could select parts of objects with the black arrow, but you do have to be careful, right? Don't start inside the object because you're probably going to move it by accident, right? You'd have to start outside that object, right? Press and drag. Inside, you selected that area, you could delete it, you could move it, or you could give it a color like I did. So I'll give things like pinstripes on it. If I'm drawing a car, if I'm drawing a wall, I'll drag at the bottom of the wall. You know what molding is on a wall? That thing you often see on the bottom of walls to make things look a little fancier, a little more believable. It's a pretty cool feature. So again, like if I start inside here, I'm going to move the object. That's a bit of a problem. All right. How's the black arrow teaching you? Treating you? Good. Shuying, do you have a question for me? No? Okay. I want to, excellent. You know, I'm so pleased to be teaching this. It's just sort of like raw fun. You know, it's not, you know, too heavy, but it's very rewarding. What else do I want to show you? So pretty much that's it for the black arrow though, right? Double click if you have strokes to select a whole object. You could click once if there's no stroke. It lets you change the shape of objects in more than one way. And it even lets you select parts of objects like we just did. I want to get back to that merging behavior though. So I was mentioning to you earlier that when you have colors on the same layer, because yes, we're going to work with layers, colors on the same layer, and those objects touch, they merge. So we made these fancy buildings, right? But what else does merge mode do? I want you to try something with me. For one, let's change your stage color. So if you have something selected, click on the empty stage. I'd like you to come to the properties palette and you'll see automatically it has this area that says stage with a color chip. So you go ahead and pick any color you want to use. Easy, right? But you do have to click on emptiness. You know, click on the stage is the best idea for this to even show up on the properties palette. One reason I wanted to do that is I want to show you what would happen if you made holes in your buildings. So I'm going to treat them kind of like windows, right? So I'm going to put a hole in the building, and that means anything on lower layers I'm going to see. So if I have trees on a lower layer, I'll see it right through that window, right? Right now, we'll see your background color. So here's the way you would do it. I want you to switch to the rectangle tool. Now, what you need to do now is you need to choose a fill that's different than the color of your buildings. Now, I got to tell you, it's a temporary color, so don't bother being artistic about it, right? Any color is going to be fine, just can't be the same color as the building. Because what I'm going to ask you to do is figure out where you might want a window, or possibly more than one window. Now, okay, all we did was pile rectangles on there, right? But I'm going to show you something rather surprising. If your windows are a different color than the object, they won't merge, they won't float, they take a bite out of the object underneath. And I'm going to prove it by asking you to get the black arrow, the main selection tool. Click on a window and press delete. So really, those black squares I made acted like a cookie cutter coming down on the dough. This is interesting to me because, frankly, I've done a lot of drawing in my life, you know, like real lot of drawing, and I've taught a lot of drawing, and this is a different way to see drawing. I'm using merge mode, even to do the opposite of merging. I don't even know what to call this. Divide? That's not really good enough, but it punches holes. So the only thing you have to remember is if the color's different and it lies on something, but it's a different color, it eliminated the pixels underneath it right away. So if you select it and delete it, it's a great way to make holes. I want you to imagine if something was walking behind this building, how cool would it be when I saw it go past those windows? Give yourself a minute and see if you'd like to do anything similar elsewhere. So it let me change the shape before I deleted it. So I was able to make something fairly complex. Anybody have any questions for me so far? Okay. I hope I've won your trust, so I'm assuming it's sincere. Okay. All right. Okay, so we know a little bit about one method of drawing in this program, and we'll probably visit a more proper drawing tool at some point. Right now, we did it by merging shapes, and what we did was, to get started, was we made sure we had no stroke. You know, I'm going to just demonstrate something, but you don't have to join me on this one. If I tried to merge something like this, even if it had a thinner stroke, it's not really about that stroke weight, even if it looked more like that, right? And I continued to attempt to merge. This is what would happen. One, if I moved a piece, it would do that. So it didn't merge like these did, because the black stroke caused the trouble. Sure. So that's not really what I wanted it to do. Just remember, if you like this particular technique, whatever tool you use, just make sure you're not using a stroke.
To leave stuff behind so they have an excuse to see you again.
Hey, I left my earrings in your car.
Yeah, I'm in my car right now. I don't.
It sounded like a cartoon, so maybe in some way it was relevant.
I'm ready to watch TV already.
You know, I have no idea what people do during my class because I'm not there. You know, one person was telling me how she's learned how to look focused no matter what she's doing. She's probably like has her phone right behind the computer. I think she's staring at me and she's like watching, and you know, animations or something. It's almost a relief because in the classroom, I know when people are not doing what they're supposed to, and I don't want to police people. So I'm like, you know, everyone learns their own way, and at least here it doesn't spread as an influence.
Who knows? Maybe everybody's multitasking.
And really, and to tell you the truth, if multitasking works for you, I give you credit. I personally do not believe in it at all. And I feel like everything I've achieved in my life is because I know how to focus. Your generation has been robbed of focus training because you were born with a cell phone. You know, I had 35 years before my phone, or 40 years, you know, and to those of you who can focus, you got to keep that alive. You know, you make sure that you don't reach for entertainment every time an empty moment comes across. You know, it definitely does not help the brain evolve. But she's actually a very driven student, so I don't know what the computer was doing on its own. All right, you guys got a little taste of drawing with merge mode? A little understanding about how the black arrow fits in? I want to do some animation then. I have a great idea. You know, it's funny, I'm doing it differently today with you guys. I've taught the same lesson a million times, but this one's much better. I'm enjoying this experience. Since you guys have some experience with layers already from Photoshop and then tracks from Premiere, I think I want to jump right into layers and then animate in front of your city or in front of your drawings. So let's get a look down here. This can be moved. If you notice, I'm finding the edge of this is called the timeline, by the way, and I could drag it up or down if I find this edge, right? Press and drag. So I'm going to bring it up, but to make sure you can see my stage, I'm also going to zoom back a little. My trusty computer is really hurting this week. Oh well. So anyway, here's the timeline down here, and you'll notice you're already on layer 1, right? So I want to get busy right away, right? It does layer just like Photoshop. So higher layers are closer to you, right? Lower layers are further from you. So if I had a layer 3, it would be here, right? And we could rename them and we could restack them later, but this is the way they show up. I'd like for you to make with me a new layer. So right above layer 1, where it says layer 1, are a bunch of little tools. And the most important one may be this one, which is the plus sign. And I'd like you to click it once. So now you've got layer 2. Before we start using these layers and learning more, I'd like to rename them. Can you go down to where it says layer 1 and double click the name? And you could call this anything you want. I'm calling mine city. I want to go to that layer. I want to throw this one thing out. There we go. Okay. So the upper layer, I don't have a name for you yet. I'm still deciding what we're going to do. I want to start with a simple animation, which doesn't have much to do with the city, but it might look cool, right? A great way to learn how to animate is to take a circle and treat it like a ball, but not any ball, a ball that's been punctured. So if a ball was sitting there, right, and it got hit by something, right, it would start to lose air, right? So you'd have this type of thing. And how would it behave? You know, would it flatten all on one side? Would it be like, probably not. It'd be more like that. Absolutely. Well, it was like a balloon or something. It could go crazy. And one of the biggest issues is what kind of ball, and she wouldn't let me get away with generalizing. Because I know another teacher at this school is like, okay, go home and draw a rubber ball and a bowling ball, and they both have to bounce. It's a great assignment because you have to think, wow, how would a bowling ball bounce? You know, and it wouldn't bounce a lot, but the rubber ball would. I think it's pretty clever, really. But right now I'm talking about a kind of generic ball that's in your own imagination. I don't really want it going anywhere, but this is what I'm looking for. It's going to lose some air, which is going to affect its weight. So it might lose some on the other side. It might start to even fall over. It may actually melt down into a heap. So let's do this together. We're going to be drawing on layer 1 in a minute, but there is a problem that I'd like to fix first. This timeline is 1/24th of a second long. Very brief. The world's shortest movie, right? We set it to 24 frames a second. I'd like you to go out to frame 24, right? And you'll see that they're numbered. So 25 is numbered. I'm talking about the frame before it. I'm going to highlight that little box, right, where 24 would be. And I'm going to ask you to try out something on your keyboard with me. I need a key. I need the F5 key. And the top row of keys are F keys. And some of them are shared with the computer. So they might change brightness, they might change volume, that kind of thing. But we want the F5 that Adobe Animate uses. So if you're sitting on a laptop computer right now, you may have to hold down the FN key. Some of you might know FN and some do not, right? The FN key on a Mac is the low left corner. Not quite sure where it is on Windows. It might be the same spot, right? It says FN on it. It's really called function. And why? It means function the way the program wants, not the computer, right? So don't change volume, don't change brightness, don't do those other tricks. Do whatever Adobe Animate says. So this is what I'm going to do. I've already clicked in this frame. I'm going to use my F5 key, but since I'm on a laptop, I have to hold my FN key down. Otherwise, my F5 key is going to change the brightness, which I, really don't want to be changing brightness right now. So I'm going to hold down my key and tap F5. Make sure I'm in here. And this is what you should see. If that worked, and I'll go over it if I need to, I don't mind, go to the layer underneath it, also in frame 24, and F5. What was interesting about that is since I started on the top layer, my city disappeared. I F5'd a second down the road and my city was gone a 24th of a second. So it was way behind me. If I made both layers the same length, then they both get to live for an entire second. Did it work for you guys? Are you seeing these gray bars? Does anyone need a hand? Listen, I know some of you guys are super fast, and when you look sleepy, you're not bored. You just need more action. But I have to be fair. Everyone's going at different speeds, and I try to find a middle ground. All right, we're ready to do a 1-second animation, and we can add time anytime we want by F5ing again further down the timeline. I like to make sure my layers are similar length so that the chair doesn't disappear while somebody's sitting on it, right? I want them both to have the same lifespan. Okay. Now, if you notice on the new layer, there's a circle in frame 1, and that circle is hollow, right? In other words, it's not a black circle, but the circle underneath it is black. Now, this is a critical idea for all animation programs. Those are called keyframes. In new animation, I have to find something. There we go. In new animation, we use keyframes to establish key moments. So you could tell I'm about to drop this, right? I didn't even have to tell you, you knew it, right? This is a key moment. The other key moment is down here. Now, in certain kinds of animation, the computer will recognize that, right? It's usually called tweening, for the in-between part. The computer will recognize the in-between part. So I could put a key moment in frame 1 and another key moment in frame 10, not quite a half a second. The second one would be like this, and the computer would figure out the drop. But Windsor Mckay didn't have that, and no animator starts that way. They start with frame by frame, where you make every frame yourself. So that's what we're going to do. All right. Could everybody click on that keyframe on layer 2? That's the hollow keyframe. You can only draw in a keyframe. You can't draw here or here or here or way out here. You can draw on a keyframe. So on the keyframe. All right. I'd like for you to get the oval tool. And I'd like you to pick a color. So this is going to be a ball, and it's going to be sitting in front of your city, right? I actually want to change something on my city if you give me a second. All right, so I'm clicking on the same keyframe, the brand new one on layer 2. I'm getting my oval tool, and I'm going to pick a color for the ball. I'm going to suggest that you make sure your stroke is off. That's color of none. It's just going to be a little bit easier to explore motion with me. So I got this. And what I'd like is a circle of a ball, maybe about that big. I want to say a quick thing. It's not like I really care if we all draw a ball of different sizes. I just want it to be big enough that you're comfortable with what you're doing, right? So alternately, we could zoom in on ping pong ball, but I'm making mine kind of large. Now look at the keyframe. It went black. So we're going to be looking at this for the next week or two, couple weeks, right? That black keyframe means there's art there. A hollow keyframe means it's empty, there's no art. I want to show you another F key, my personal favorite. Windsor Mckay would have loved F6. He would have done twice as much animating if he'd had F6. Since again, I'm on a laptop, I'm going to need my FN key. So watch this. I'm on this particular keyframe, it's highlighted even. I just clicked it. And I'm holding my FN key only because I'm on a laptop. And I'm going to tap F6. It copied it. Now, if it worked for you, what you should be seeing right now is a second keyframe on the new layer, a second black dot. That means you copied the art. There, the one in the first frame, that's the first image. This one we're going to change. But before we do you see two black dots there? Do you have two keyframes? That's critical because we're going to make 20 of these. Not yet, one at a time. All right. So give me a second here. All right. All right, so the playhead, that's this blue line, is over the new keyframe. And in my case, my red ball is selected. I'm going to zoom in with Command plus. On Windows, you could use Control plus. I'm going to get the black arrow. Now, as we discovered before, to change a shape, the object can't be selected because you'll move it. So if you accidentally move it, Command Z. Then deselect it. Now, I got into some trouble. I deselected the ball, but I accidentally selected the building on layer 1. We're going to lock it. And I know some of you were thinking that already, right? So can you join me in this and then we'll get back to the ball? These layers can be locked separately. This padlock would lock them both. That's not what I want. I want to go to that same slot for the city layer and click there. This way I can't accidentally select the city. It's done for now. So the lower layer is locked. It's safe. I could click it again when I want to work on it. Right now I don't, so I'm going to lock it. And I'm going to go back to the ball. All right. Okay. What I want to do is make a small, I mean really, really small change on this new copy of the ball. And I'm going to go through this a little quickly. I'm going to ask you to watch for about a minute, maybe 2, before you join me, right? So here's the idea. I have to click off so I don't move it. And then I'm coming to the edge and I'm barely moving it, barely. I'm going to F6 again. Now I've got 3 keyframes. So I'm going to go to that edge and move it again. I'm going to F6 again. And I'm going to go to that edge and move it again. If I accidentally select it at any point, I'm going to click out. If I select it and move it by accident, I'm going to Command Z and click out. So here's so far a little bit of animation. I'm going to go to the last one and continue. And if you want to join me at the moment you feel ready, you jump right in. So I'm going to use my F6 trick. Whenever I'm ready for a new drawing, I click off of it and I make a tiny, tiny change. Because that'll make it smooth. Big changes won't convince the eye. I'm going to do it again. I'm 6 frames deep. Now, like I said, it may be helpful to zoom in. Click the ball for a moment and Command plus or Control plus. It'll zoom right in on that one object. After you go a few steps, so I went about 6 frames already, it's time to start thinking about how would that ball really behave? Like, would all the action be in the same spot? And I was saying earlier, I really don't think so, So after I got the visitor's attention, they see, hey, something's doing with that ball there, right? I'm going to start expanding the motion. And this is what I mean by that. So I just went from here to here, right? So I'm going to actually F6 it again. And I selected mine, so I got to click off. And yeah, I am going to change that spot, but that's not all. I'm going to go to the other side and pull it in a little bit. That means you could do multiple things in one frame, but they have to be really small. I pulled this in and this side's starting to come in. It's possible that the bottom would start to collapse, but they're very small changes. I'm going to F6 again. And if it's selected, I deselect. Otherwise, I don't have to bother. I'm going to make multiple changes this time. That comes in. This comes in. This would start to come down, maybe out as the mass of the ball would have to find a new place to go while the top deflates. And F6 again. Now, if you think this takes a lot of patience, imagine having to draw each one. So for today, do your best. And I could tell a couple of guys are very sleepy. I can't blame you. Life is so exhausting. Jeez. But you could always, like, you know, run to a sink and wash your face if you need to. The class is too short for a break. I would like you to keep going. Oops, I moved it, so I'm going to Command Z, click off. Keep going until this ball collapses. So I'm going to take the top down. While you're drawing, I want to say a little bit about timing. So I usually ask people to make the smallest incremental changes at first, just so they can see what smooth looks like. But to be honest with you, that approach means smooth and slow. Yes, it's going to be smooth, but the ball's going to slowly move. What if the ball's supposed to go? It can't go this slow, right? So at some point, if I feel like that ball has lost enough air, that its deflation, its collapse is going to speed up, I can make slightly bigger changes. I'm going to try that. So here's the last change. And I think I'm going to accept it. So I'm going to go ahead and make a new frame. And mine selected. I got those little dots. So this, I've been going at about this pace, a little bit. I'm going to go a little more this time. I don't want the ball feel like it's shrinking. So I'm kind of expanding its base. And I definitely want the top to start coming down because that's my biggest goal. Now I have this choice, and this is a little sophisticated. I just want to throw this in. If each keyframe has a slightly larger distance than the last, each one makes a bigger change than its prior frame. So it's a little bigger of a change, and the next one's even a bigger of a change, the next one's even a bigger change. That's going to feel like the whole motion is speeding up. I'm going to have this speed up. And I'm also going to have it start to collapse over to the left. And these are just ideas. Oops. So I'm thinking, hopefully you can get this thing flat enough for your taste by around frame 20 or somewhere in the 20s. Now, what I'd like to do is mention previewing and saving kind of quickly, right? So first off, the easiest kind of preview is to hit return or enter to play the movie. You might want to drag the playhead back to the beginning first by yourself. This top here behaves like a handle. And then hit return or enter. Did it work? All right. So listen, if you hate yours, right, but it looks like it's moving, you already win, right? That's the first thing, just to make it look like it's moving, even if it doesn't make sense. But if yours feels in some way like a ball deflating, you win even more, right? So again, return or enter. So usually you'll drag the playhead somewhere first to play it. If you'd like to see a quick preview of it outside of this program, I'd like you to try this. Mac people, you're going to do Command Return. So you're going to hold down Command and tap Return. Windows people, you're going to hold down Control and tap Enter. So I'm going to do a Command Return. Again, I'm Control Enter on Windows. So here I am back inside. This is a SWF, right? And that's the file type that everyone got afraid of. We don't have to fear it because there's no programming in there to cause trouble. Plus, you're the artist, so you know that it's a clean file. There's nothing wrong with the SWF. It's just the SWF in the wrong hands, right? Which, you know, really caused a lot of trouble. SWF's loop, as you can see, so that's kind of nice. You get to watch it over and over and see what you like about it and what you don't like about it, right? And if we had saved the file, the SWF would go to the same location. So let's save it. I'm going to close the SWF with that little red button. And let's just talk about saving what you did. I'm not going to collect these, right? But this is an important part. All right, let's go to the File menu and choose Save. That's not a big surprise. File menu, Save. And you could call it anything you want. I think I'm just going to call this ball.fla. So yeah, it still uses the same extension. We're not in Flash, right? We're in Adobe Animate, but they kept the .fla. And again, I know Windows people are sometimes, it's not always as clear the role of the extension. You don't actually have to type it. It'll still be an FLA. I'm saving mine to the desktop. I click Save. Now, what that means is I could work on it more tomorrow. If I want to, I'll go to the desktop, I'll double click it, and it'll open up just like this. Now, if I did the SWF now, since it has a home, right? Mine knows it's on the desktop. Look what happens then. I'm going to do Command Return again. And we saw this before. I just want to make a point. This is everything on my desktop. There's the SWF. Right? I didn't even tell it where to go or give it a name. You do Command Return. It just takes the original name and the original location, and it puts the SWF there. Again, you're going to get mixed mileage out of the .swf file. They're not used a hell of a lot now, but they make great previews to help you think. It's 2:39, and I know people have to leave. And there is no new homework today. I am going to show one more thing to anyone who could say, and I promise I'm going to fit it in next class. Utterly promise, right? So if you have to go now, don't feel bad. I already took attendance. You're good. If you've got 2 or 3 minutes, I want to show you how to make a more useful file. We're used to GIFs, .gif, right? And if I wanted to make a quick GIF, this program's fantastic at it, right? So I'm going to do that really, really fast. I saved it first, and now I'm going to the File menu. I'm going to do File menu. Oh, sorry, I'm not even inside. There we go. The File menu, Export, Export Movie. No, sorry, Export Animated GIF. There's a lot of good choices here. Well, I want to do Export Animated GIF. Click it. Give it a minute. I don't know why that particular feature sometimes takes a while. This is the huge export image window, but there's very little you need here. I just want you to check over here that you don't have transparency on, because you're going to hide your background. So I'm going to leave that off. And there's really nothing else to do but come all the way to the bottom and click the save button. I'm going to go over one or two of these features next time. But right now, I just want to save a basic GIF. So I'm going to click save. It's telling me the name. It's telling me that it wants to go to the same location as the original and even as the Swift. This is ball.gif, and I'm going to save it. I want to show you guys something. Let me just clear some stuff out of the way. I have a big mess today. All right, my big messy desktop. Here's the GIF. So I want to show you something about the GIF. The best way to preview a GIF is to open a tab and literally drag it and drop it in the browser anywhere inside. This is what it would look like on the internet. How is everybody? So I hope that was kind of fun. This is the main topic for a little while now. And there is going to be, I'm glad you feel that way. There is going to be one homework coming up, but we're not there yet. I'm definitely going to do some training together first. I kind of love this stuff. But you must be tired. You know, I have to say, like by this time of the semester, we're tired anyway, even if it was not 2020. Which you add just being this late in the semester and 2020, and life's just exhausting. Oh, I'm just hungry and tired. But that was fun. So anyway, this is Thursday. I will be seeing you guys again on Tuesday. Let me apologize for the 100th time. I have no idea what happened today with the link. I'm going to go figure that out right away and fix it. Hopefully. Wish me luck, because that was just weird. It's the first time that ever happened. I got to congratulate you all for figuring something out. I respect that. Any last comments from anybody or last questions?
Yeah.
Yeah, Brandon.
Would it still be okay to use Flash? Because I kind of botched it. There's a install, so I don't have like a legitimate copy of Animate, so I got Edge Animate instead, and I think that's a bit different. It's very limited. Like it didn't have a lot of the
Yeah, don't use Edge Animate. That's not Flash and it's not Animate. It's a whole other utterly obsolete program.
Okay, yeah, so I got like the wrong program for this lesson, so I kind of.
But you know, when you get a chance, you could log back in, can't you, and get Animate? Do you have the free Adobe account?
I didn't interact with it because I just got like the I have like illegitimate copies. So
Got it.
yeah.
So this choice is yours. If to do this right, you try to get hold of that free Adobe account. I mean, I could find one of the handouts that includes the link to it.
Yeah, I'll look back. Yeah, that'd be good.
Let me take a quick look for you because I think I actually have them in an easier place than the handout. Just give me